I have a big idea. The big idea is that many of our young men are trapped. Trapped not only in their bodies, but trapped in other spaces. And it's the situation of that being trapped that causes many of the issues that we see with black and brown boys and young men. In the research and education around young black boys, there's this phenomenon called the school to prison pipeline. What we mean by the school to prison pipeline are the ways that the system of education looks a lot like the system of incarceration, from being searched when you go into school, from having to go through metal detectors and other forms of, carceral, logic. The carceral logic's like being suspended at rates that are disproportionate to the regular population, detentions that look like detention centers, right? That this is the everyday for young men and boys of color. We usher them through a system that says to their bodies, you're trapped, that you are being looked at, surveilled, that the gaze is almost complete. But I argue that there is no school to prison pipeline. That for young black and brown boys and young men, there's just prison. I've also been studying the evolution, the genesis of the black body as a site of entrapment. And I found that it has its roots in white supremacy and anti-black racism. It has its roots in slavery, and the types of things that slavery meant. Black men wearing chains on their bodies, being made to, till farms and grounds. That this idea that the black body is captive, to something other than the freedom of its humanity has been an idea that has been consistent with the experience of chattel slavery. It is an idea that has incubated after chattel slavery to convict leasing. It has been an idea that has grown up with Jim Crow, an idea that have remanifested itself with mass incarceration and the crisis of suspension or disproportionality that we see within schools. It is the idea that slavery gave birth to, a type of captivity that we have not yet found freedom from. And the work moving forward, we need liberation dreaming. But beyond that, if we have education that imprisons the incarcerated, it does not necessarily interrupt the system that confines. We also need education that will interrupt the system that confines. So in addition to education that liberates, we need education that is abolitionist. And it's in that abolitionist and liberatory educational, approach and design that we begin to interrupt the twin shades of oppression. One is the concept that we live unfree in a world, but also the concept that there is a structure that makes us unfree that we also need to abolish. That abolition and liberation are the two projects that will bring us to a gender reality where the performances of toxicity in terms of masculinity, particularly masculinity within communities of color, the types of toxicity that we don't necessarily and always talk about. It's the type of it is the type of interruption that is necessary in order to make our communities better and make our young men and our young boys freer. It's the type of education that is necessary, deeply necessary, in order to recreate our society.